Israel has barred two U.S. Democratic congresswomen from visiting the country. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's office issued a statement claiming that their visit was meant to, quote, negate the legitimacy of Israel. Now, this includes Representatives Rashida Tlaib, who's of Palestinian heritage, and Ilhan Omar. They have both been highly critical of Israel's treatment of Palestinians and have called for a boycott of Israeli products. The entry ban comes after President Donald Trump tweeted that the two congresswomen hate Israel and all Jewish people. Let's break this down. We are joined by Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem and Pablo Foley Elias in Washington. Welcome to you both. And I'd like to begin with you, Tanya. Why has Israel decided to bar entry to these two congresswomen?
Well, this planned visit had been discussed in Israel for several weeks now, but this latest decision is a turnaround of a government decision. Now, both congresswomen here are seen by Israeli government officials as being vocal critics of Israeli policies against Palestinians, and also being supportive of the boycott and divestment movement. So the Interior Ministry tonight actually issued a statement saying it is because of their activities, boycott activities, that they would not be let into the country. They can actually do that because Israel amended its entry law about 2 years ago, stating that any foreigner coming into the country and supporting or calling for support of a boycott could be banned from entering Israel. But this is certainly a very high-profile visit. And also Prime Minister Netanyahu quoted this law, but saying that the itinerary they received, which has not been made public, was actually solely to visit Palestine, not Israel. Also, there was no visits or scheduled with Israeli officials. It's not clear that they would have met Palestinian Authority officials. And he also said in that statement that it would harm Israel.
Right. Pablo, what has the reaction been in Washington?
Well, the reaction here has been coming in thick and fast now. Actually, in the past few minutes, we've just heard from Representative Omar. She was obviously very critical of that decision. But most notably, what we're hearing is what President Donald Trump said following the decision. He came out and tweeted again saying Representatives Omar and Tlaib are the face of the Democrat Party and they hate Israel. So essentially reiterating what he had earlier tweeted. Now, he'll be speaking at a rally later in New Hampshire. So it'll be interesting to see what he says at that rally up there later on. We've also heard from the Senate Democratic leader, Chuck Schumer. He said denying entry to members of the United States Congress is a sign of weakness, not strength. It'll only hurt the US-Israel relationship and support for Israel in America. We've also heard from the US House Speaker, Nancy Pelosi. She says she hopes Israel reverses the decision to deny US lawmakers. And most notably, perhaps, is that the pro-Israel group AIPAC, which has been incredibly critical, actually, recently of both Omar and Tlaib in the past, said that the congresswomen should nonetheless be allowed to travel to Israel. Also, we've noticed as well that there has been very little reaction from within the Republican Party, and many commentators here in the United States are saying it's because there's actually a lot of division over whether they support Donald Trump's tweets or whether they support the decision taken by Israel.
And you mentioned it there, Pablo. I mean, the president is really one Republican who has certainly not been silent about all of this. In fact, this whole thing came after he tweeted that Israel would be showing great weakness if it allowed these two congresswomen into the country. Tanya, did he force Netanyahu's hand?
Well, there's certainly one reading here that there has been a lot of pressure by the White House because it came so shortly after this first tweet by President Trump. It's not the first time he has attacked those two congresswomen, but also there's somehow the sense that Prime Minister Netanyahu followed the lead here by President Trump. I mean, the Prime Minister here is not known for publicly criticizing President Trump. But the decision is actually a huge reversal also for the Israeli government here, because just a month ago, the Israeli ambassador to the US, Ron Dermer, had said that in light of respect for US Congress, Israel would not deny entry to any member of Congress. So that came a bit as a huge surprise today. But Prime Minister Netanyahu is aiming for being re-elected also in a month's time. He can certainly have a lot of support for this decision in his right-wing base, but there's also concern here what it means actually for future relations in the long term for the bipartisan nature of the relationship between the US and Israel.
Tanya Kramer in Jerusalem, Pablo Foley Elias in Washington. Thank you so much to both of you.